This is By Your Side, the podcast that cuts through the noise of new parenthood. No cliches, no guilt trips, just the real story. Practical tools and insights that actually help. I'm Katie, and I'm here to make sure you don't do this alone. I just wanted to give you the heads up. Today's podcast with Suzanne Scott is incredibly powerful. We talk about trauma, what it is, and how it might be something different to what you think. This episode may make you reflect on your own childhood experiences. So I just wanted to encourage you to listen with kindness. And if you feel you need to, I encourage you to speak to somebody else and ask for further help and support from a professional. Let's dive in. So today's episode, we are speaking to the lovely Suzanne Scott from Trauma Informed Parenting, and you were the founder and the CEO of Trauma Informed Parenting. I just wanted to kind of pick up what made you want to set up that organisation. What drove you to this point?
I know it's crazy because it certainly wasn't something I thought I'd spend my life doing. Ironically, I'm a hairdresser originally from Glasgow. It wasn't my life plan. I became a parent and then I was a foster carer, and I was dealing with these huge behaviours, and I had lots of different kids of different ages, and I fell upon it by accident. There's a huge movement in Glasgow called the ACE Aware movement to do with ACEs. I don't know if you've had any podcasts on that.
Look that up, but yeah.
The ACE Aware, I highly recommend it, and I can signpost you. The ACE Aware Nation, it's all about understanding how our childhood affects our adult life and how we respond to our children. And so when I learned that and I started applying it, I fell upon the work of a man called Brian Post in America. And I started learning about all of his work around this, and I started to apply it in my home. And I couldn't believe what I was seeing. These kids, especially my foster child who had come from extreme trauma, and at the age of 7 was looking at going into a childcare facility.
Right.
Because nobody would take him on, and we couldn't keep him. We were moving out of the area, and we weren't long-term carers, we were short-term carers, so nobody would take this child on. And I didn't want that for him. We wanted him to be able to go to a home, to be safe. And so I started applying it for him, and the transformation was unbelievable. And then I didn't notice this, I didn't expect this, but my own autistic child started to stop having meltdowns. And she started to become calmer and more regulated. And I changed my relationship with my neurotypical child, and with my husband, and with my parents, with my friends. And I thought, I have to tell people this, because in Scotland, nobody really knew about the trauma-informed approach. And so that was about 7-8 years ago, and we're still doing it now, and we can't do enough of it because it's making such a change. And as we were just talking about, now I think about, if only I had known this years ago. When my kids were born, when I've had so many babies through our home as well as foster care,
Okay.
As well as older kids. So, I think back on it, if I wish I'd known this stuff.
Well, it sounds like magic. So I really want to dive in and unpack this. First, ACE. So you can mention ACEs.
Yeah.
Now, for somebody at home who might not have heard of ACEs, what is an ACE?
Yeah, well, there are 10 ACEs. Okay. And so, basically years ago, because kind of whistle-top tour of it, this topic, they did a study years ago on obesity, because they wanted to learn about obesity and why people could lose weight, but that they would keep gaining that weight back on. And these 2 men in America discovered that it was about the trauma. So they could lose the weight, but they would get triggered back into their eating and their coping mechanism, which for them was food. And many of us have different ways of doing that, and for them it was food. And so they wanted to understand the trauma, and they asked lots of different people in different walks of life, what were your adverse childhood experiences? What did you suffer as a child? And so it was 10 ACEs, and it was just a number in a box. It wasn't which of these 10, it was just what's your number, what's your score? And the 10 ACEs were, now let's see if I can remember them, because I say them constantly. Let's see if I can remember them. Physical, emotional, sexual abuse. Physical, emotional neglect, not being with your parents of origin, having anyone in your home that's in trouble with the law or in prison, anyone treated violently, any kind of substance abuse, and not being with your parents of origin for whatever reason that might be. So these were the 10 ACEs.
Yeah.
When the results came back, they were shocked at what they saw, high numbers, and they thought, this can't be right, this must be a mistake. They started all over again with different people, and they got the same results again. And there's been lots of studies done. This has been done in countries across the world over and over again. They keep getting the same results. Now, I could go on and on about this, and I won't, because I'm sure you're going to go find out all about it now. But they basically discovered by accident that many of us have been suffering from these adversities in childhood, but that we don't talk about it. It's hidden. And there's been lots of studies done about the knock-on effect in our adult life.
That's
And so there's
so
lots of
interesting,
impact
isn't
as
it?
adults and
Yeah,
how a lot of
that
illness, a lot of disease, a lot of dysfunction.
stems
It's
back
causing
from
all
that
these.
experience in childhood, and that's so interesting. And I'm aware of kind of the rates. I'll drop the link in the show notes to talk about it. But I think when somebody stops and actually thinks, did they experience maybe domestic abuse in the home, or did they experience emotional abuse in the
Yeah,
home?
but the thing is, it's not what you think. We think trauma is the big hard stuff.
Yeah,
But what ACEs was telling us was that it's just not being smacked and hit as a child is physical abuse. Being yelled and screamed at and called names as a child is emotional abuse. Not being allowed to have your authentic emotions and be your true authentic self because you had to please all the adults in your life is emotional
oh,
neglect.
good boy.
But we didn't know that. It's not about blame because nobody knew.
Yeah.
So this is the understanding of that. So it's not just the big hard things. It's actually a lot of the way we've been brought up.
Wow. So that, I think the penny drop for so many people listening will be like, oh, okay.
Mm.
Suddenly these are experiences I had in childhood.
So you're saying that good girl and good boy syndrome. We
Yeah.
all suffer from it.
And the people pleasing, that
Mm.
comes from keeping everybody else happy is
Yeah,
almost,
because if you didn't, you wouldn't get connection. And you need connection to survive.
yeah. Oh, okay. So that, I think that's a big kind of like
Mm,
wake
it's
up call
massive,
to
isn't it?
actually, when you look at
And that's early year stuff that we learn
really early years.
very early.
So you talk about trauma informed and that sense of connection, and you said that it had that just that ripple effect for all of your relationships. So if when you kind of peel it back to that, actually not even being able to express your emotions, kind of big emotions as a child, if you're not, you're not allowed to scream and shout and cry, and it's like that's seen as a bad thing. And we call them, don't we, toddler tantrums. And we say for babies, if babies cry a lot, or if babies don't cry, they're a good baby. If they sleep well, they're a good baby. So that's still something that is almost part of parenting still, that almost those emotions, or that doing what you're told is a
Mhm.
good
Yeah.
thing. So if the almost the reverse of that, or if the and I said magic because, as you talked about, it's kind of it started to ripple its effects through different relations. Is trauma informed? What is trauma informed?
Yeah, what does it mean?
What does it mean?
I mean, I've usually talk about it for 4 hours, so I'm going to try and make it very, very quick.
You're under pressure.
Now, basically, it's about understanding ourselves first because we've been trying to other everyone else, fix them, make them calm down, make them behave, especially our children. But it's about recognizing how that makes us feel and noticing our fear in that because we are all often triggered into fear and overwhelm and we're unconscious of it. We then act from that place of fear, fixing, minimizing, making it go away. Even if it's come from love, it's still minimizing because you're shush, 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 don't cry, don't be silly, don't be upset. You shouldn't feel that way. So it's not even just the not having the hard emotion, it's just not having any heart, anything that's not happy. Actually, we should be allowed to have all those emotions. It's very normal human experience, so allowing, accepting, and actually, I want my child's emotion. If my child can come to me with their hard emotion, then I teach them what to do with that hard emotion because I've had to learn how to do it myself first. So
Yeah.
that's the key part for me. I mean, yeah, you could do it all for the child, but if you've not done it for yourself, you can't do it for the child.
Yeah.
We haven't learned how to be emotional human beings. And that doesn't mean crying and wailing all the time. It just means acknowledging I'm really scared right now and I'm really hard, I'm having a hard time and I'm really sad. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to let myself be sad because there's something happened in my life that's making me sad and made me angry and made me upset because we've all been pushing it down, pretending it's not there because nobody wanted to see that.
Yeah, that's so interesting and so powerful, isn't it? Because
So it's like a huge light bulb, isn't it? And you're
yeah,
going, oh, why did I not understand this?
yeah, but that seems very difficult, Suzanne. I'm not
It's
gonna,
one of the
it's
one of the
like,
hardest things in life.
and speaking as somebody who's done a lot of personal work, I know how difficult this is, and I would say I echo I wish I'd known this. So I wish I'd known this from my children were young, because I can definitely cite you some times where I reacted from a place that was my needs. And I know food being a particular one. So I'm just thinking my eldest, and I remember him not eating particularly well. So the health visitor had been very conscious that my child was the 91st on the height centile and he was below the 25th on the weight centile. So there was a big battleground. It was a big issue about, I felt shame that maybe I wasn't feeding him I wasn't breastfeeding enough, or I should have gone to the bottle, or, it was wrangling with all of that. And when he started to eat food, he was great for about 6 months. And then he just started to refuse food. And I remember literally just this wave of, I would get cross, I would get upset. My husband found me sobbing because the baby wouldn't eat.
Yeah.
And all just these big emotions, trying to keep a lid on it all, because all at the bottom of it was that shame that I felt like I was doing something wrong, that I was a bad mum, rather than actually seeing it as he was expressing at that time and playing with, well, what if I said no? What if I don't like this taste? And rather than allowing that expression, that for me was the biggest of like, what's going on for me. By the way, he's 6'3" and absolutely
No,
massive now.
your brain's telling you, "I was never gonna eat, but it's gonna die, it's gonna be my fault." It's not true, but that's where your brain goes, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. So
The more stress
how
we get, the more stress they get, and then the less they'll do it.
yes. So it's almost that escalation. And you're
Off
saying
our
that
energy.
when you pair that back to your own, so you look at yourself and you start with yourself. So that's tough, because as you've said, this is stuff that we might not even be aware of.
Mm.
And so how do you start that, Suzanne? How, as a
Well, I think
parent, how
yeah,
do
it's a
you
great question.
begin?
We're very clear when we do our workshops that the place we start with is not with blame. Is to remove the blame, because we didn't know this stuff. We were doing exactly what we thought we should do, what society's told us to do. And it's not my parents' fault, and it's not their parents' fault, because they didn't know either, because there's a huge, like you say, the shame is deep, isn't it? And we're very good at shaming ourselves. We can do it very quickly, can't we?
Yeah.
So we're going to try and remove that. But yeah, for me, and it's actually this really silly thing. It's the simplest thing to do, but it is the hardest thing to do. It's about just taking a minute and not doing anything, because we jump in all the time. We
Yeah.
fix, we just bond. We want to, we're always focused on that, making them do it, making them stop doing it, or whatever it is, solutions. Sometimes all we're doing is adding more stress and escalate. In fact, most of the time, we're just making it worse. So stop and breathe, because we do not breathe when we're doing this. We
So
just hold our breath,
why is breathing important?
because it changes your nervous system. It releases wonderful oxytocin in your brain, which calms down all the stress and the fear, brings your brain back online so you can think clearly about what you're going to actually do. But it also triggers that wonderful oxytocin in your child's brain.
Okay,
And
so
this
that's
is
the love
something no one
chemical,
told
isn't it?
us. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And co-regulation can happen. So I could say and do all the right things, but if I'm stressed and overwhelmed when I'm saying and doing them, all I'm doing is adding stress to my child's brain, because they feed off our emotion. It's infectious. So if I'm stressed and overwhelmed, my child is stressed and overwhelmed. But if I can learn how to stop and breathe, and the more I do it, the more it works and the better it is, and I can release that in my brain and calm myself down, and it happens quicker every time, then I start to release that in my child's brain. Children learn to co-regulate by being around a regulated caregiver. But we didn't know this stuff. No one taught us this at
So
school.
you've used co-regulation quite a bit. So what is co-regulation?
Co-regulation is when we calm down, when we are regulated, when we've released the oxytocin in our brain, it calms our nervous system, changes the vibration in our vagus nerve, in our immune system, or also our nervous system.
Yeah.
The child is unconsciously feeding off that energy. They're looking to us, and they feel our fear, so they go into fear and they escalate whatever's going on. They'll cry more, they'll get more upset. We calm down. We just say, it's okay, we've got this.
Yeah.
Then they start to calm down. But we can't fake it. You
Yeah.
can't pretend it. It's got to be learned, something you're actually doing physically. The more you breathe, the more you calm down, the more they will start to respond to that.
That's so beautiful, isn't it? It's about actually starting with yourself first makes that difference. So I love the phrase, it's like being on an airplane. And the captain always says, put your oxygen mask on first before helping anybody else.
But how crazy did we think that was when you've been on a plane as a parent and you see that and you go,
Sort
yeah, I'm
everybody
not going
else.
to do that.
Make sure they're
I'm
okay.
going to make sure it's not right. But we would have been no use to that child in that moment because our brain would be completely offline.
Yeah.
So they've known it for years. They've been telling us for years, but we weren't listening.
Yeah. And that's so, I'm thinking about all the time, whether that is your baby's crying and you don't know why. That can be incredibly so triggering. Yeah. So stressful. It creates that massive physical, I can almost still feel it.
I can feel it right now. My kids are
Stressful
20.
response. So you've got that, and you've got if the baby doesn't cry, or if you're at the supermarket and your child's having a meltdown, or it's just the embarrassment or whatever, but your first reaction is just stress and anxiety, and then potentially anger, but usually shame is at the root cause of it, of like, it's a reflection on me. But you're saying something as simple as take a beat, take a pause, breathe, in order to get your body back to the state of calm. And in doing that, actually, it calms your child because they're feeding off the energy.
Because we're just noticing how quickly we are rushing in to fix it. And we're not really fixing anything.
Yeah. But that's a learned behavior, isn't it? That's we've got to fix it. We've got to make sure everybody else is all right. And that goes back to what you were saying about those adverse.
And our mother's words come out our mouth in those moments. You hear yourself say the things that you promised yourself you were never going to say.
Yeah.
Those are the worst moments, don't you?
Yeah.
Where did that come from?
But is that when we go, it's the kind of, don't cry, don't be upset, it's all right, it's filling that void. Sometimes that's about the person themselves but trying to placate and making sure everything's all right. But sometimes is some of that wording your parenting, the stuff that you
it's
heard.
also societal as well. We've heard it from everywhere. Everyone told us it, not just our parents, our friends, our parents, our teachers,
Yeah.
It's everywhere. You were to be happy and smile and not, be a Debbie Downer and don't ruin it for everyone else. Nobody wants to see your rotten, miserable face. Straighten your face, change your attitude.
Yeah.
All through our lives, and like that, I don't know if you talk about work of Gabor Mate, but I love him, and he talks about how when we're very young, we learn very early in life that if we do not to keep connection, which is the ultimate survival, we will abandon our true authentic selves if our caregiver doesn't like what we're doing, who we are. Very, very early, we learn not to be our true selves, to be what they want us to be. That's really brutal when you think about it, isn't it?
Yeah. That's really significant. And I would say becoming a parent, and I'd love to know if this is my experience, stroke hypothesis, becoming a parent, and I always say becoming a parent changes everything. And I say that quite glibly in some ways, because actually it really does unearth everything. It gives you those moments where you say and do things that you swore you never were going to do. And that's as much as, leaving your baby crying longer, or, and that's fine if you need the break, but it's that big emotional reaction that sometimes sideswipes you because you've learned not to have any big emotional reactions, yet this baby or this infant's bringing that out in you. And it's almost the shame, again, go back to shame, but it's really interesting how being a parent actually gives you a mirror into some of this stuff, but some of this stuff is very, very difficult.
I actually think parents should have therapy before they even consider becoming parents. If I knew this stuff originally, if we could imagine if we'd done our emotional work before we became parents, my goodness, it's the biggest gift we could give to our children, isn't it? Because those triggers are huge.
Yeah, that is really,
and it's not
huge.
Yeah, I mean, we work with a lot of older children as well, families, but they want to send the child to therapy a lot of the time. It's not the child that needs the therapy.
Because actually what you're saying, and it goes back to that co-regulation and that relationship, that actually once you start with you and making sure that you're okay and you're feeling calm, and you look at those emotions, you look at, oh, okay, that made me really cross. What's that about? What's going on underneath?
Yeah.
what that's
But the
missing.
thing that blew my mind was it didn't just change my relationship with the adults in my life as well. Because when I understand the brain, and I've not got time to explain it, I wish I could, and I can, and tell me to shut up when I go on too long. But when we go into fear, I know you say shame, I say fear. It's
Yeah.
really all the same thing. When we go into fear, we disconnect from relationship. We're not in relationship.
Mm.
When we're in a love state, we are. We're in relationship and connection. Now, when we shut down into fear, the relationship's still there. We're just not in it. And everyone around us feels that disconnect. So our children, our babies, our partners,
Yeah.
and we need to calm down to get back into that. You've been there, with your partner, you feel like, can't stand them, don't know why you're with them in the first place or how or
Yes.
and then
Really
you
annoyed
later
me that
on,
you
you're like, "They're amazing, why didn't I feel that way?"
yeah.
When your kids, we can't even look at them. And then the next day, you look at them in bed and they're just gorgeous, and you think, "How could I be so angry? Look how gorgeous they are." You feel so guilty, more shame.
Yeah.
And then you think, "Oh, but they were really awful today," to try and make yourself feel less bad.
Yeah.
Because by this time you're feeling that again, and then come back into that love state. So we talk about choosing to not come from fear and instead to come from love, because there's two different states in the brain.
Yeah.
And you learn about the brain and you start to understand that. You see that you've been living in fear a lot of the time and that you're not in relationship in those moments.
Yeah.
Your child's trying to get your connection in any way they can. And that's what behaviour is all about.
Oh, do you want to say that again? That was gold.
All behaviour is about connection. Every behaviour a child does is survival to get our connection, because we are shut down in fear. Or they are.
Mm.
Mhm.
That's
It's
amazing.
mind-blowing, isn't it?
That's huge. So every single behavior, and let's get away from calling it good behavior.
Human behaviour, not just
It's
children.
just
Yeah.
behavior. So yeah, and adults too. Everything is about getting that connection.
It's all communication. Yeah, all behaviour is
Yeah.
communication. But we don't like it, so we try and put it away because we were told to put it away.
So I'm wondering, Suzanne, because you talked about obvious breathing, which is so accessible to everybody, and it kind of
But
gets
we're very resistant to it.
yes to actually breathe.
And when you're stressed and somebody says, "Just breathe," you're like,
Yeah, race for breathe. But actually, it's so it changes your whole dynamics. It's because when you're stressed, your breathing is very shallow and it's from up here in the chest. Whereas actually, when you breathe properly, you breathe from below in your tummy or below the diaphragm, don't you?
Just any breathing you do, any conscious breathing that you do, better than none. Yes, there's lots of other ways to do it that are really great, but anything, because you don't breathe, you hold your breath
Yeah.
when you're stressed out.
And I just wonder, is there so there's the element of breathing, so in the moment and calming down, but also you've kind of talked about what's going on, underneath the hood, what is really driving this and you talked therapy may not be accessible or
Mhm.
you might not be ready for that.
Yeah.
But I wonder, is there something about language? Because you've used quite, about that emotional, we were told not to feel our emotions,
Yeah.
but there's two elements here, I guess. There's the emotion, there's the feeling it and the actually expressing it. So the therapy is almost like talking it through. So is there something that you can still access that isn't going to therapy?
Yeah, well, I mean, we offer workshops, on fully funded workshops. Anyone can attend them on how to do this, and we have ongoing support. But there's loads and loads of other people very similar, like Brian Post's work. There's lots of great stuff out there. But for me, it was changing my language, because I was saying all the things that my mum and that society had taught me. I was saying all those sayings unconsciously. I still can. This isn't about being perfect. Nobody can do this all the time. And that's another point, that blame and shame element. You're not going to be perfect. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to get stressed. It's part of being human. But it's okay, because we're going to get really good at the repair. And it's in the repair that things change and things learn. We teach our children and we learn ourselves as well. But yeah, that language that because I still hear myself sometimes saying, "Oh, for God's sake, are you still moaning about this?" And then I go, "Oh, where did that come from?" Because I know this stuff. So it's only normal, but it's about catching myself in it and learning to say, "Do you know what? Come here, come here. I can take it. Tell me how you feel. Share it with me. Get it out. Shout, scream, stamp." I've got to figure out what I can cope, what I can accept in my home. Because, of course, we don't want our children to grow up and do these huge, unacceptable behaviours. So what can you accept? What is acceptable to you? It'll be different for everybody. We had taught our children to stamp their feet and to yell and scream when we were like, right, come on, everyone's really angry. Let's get it out. Let's yell.
Mhm.
Let's scream. Let's stamp about. Give it to me. So there's a safe place in our home to do that. They don't do it when they go out because they've already released it.
Yeah.
Problem is that we were making them push it down. So when they go outside to a stressful world, more stress comes at them and the behaviour comes out in inappropriate ways.
Yeah. I've heard there's a great saying, emotions are like gas, better out than in.
Yeah, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah,
But
yeah.
but
I've heard about it like being like the toilet, but yes, that's maybe a bit more.
yeah, anyway. But I
Even
suppose
when they cry, we want to stop them crying. We want to shut those tears down, and it comes from a loving place. But we need to let people cry till all the tears are done.
yeah,
But we've spent generations of pushing it away, and then end up back in more tears later, or back in bigger behaviours. And this is where mental health problems happen when we're not allowed to have emotion. So if we can actually accept the tears, accept and notice the need to fix, it's so strong. You start to be aware of yourself. Even like say, "Oh, don't worry, it's okay." Don't just say, "I hear you." It's really hard. Tell me.
yeah.
When we acknowledge and we validate how they feel and don't try and fix and change how they feel,
Mhm.
that's what makes everything different. Because to be seen and validated by someone instead of fixed, it's
That
very, very
that's true.
connecting and healing.
Yeah, and I think it circles back to what you were saying about your true self, that you learn very quickly as a child
Mhm.
not to show your true
I
self.
can't cope with me when
But
I'm upset. I'm not allowed to be angry.
yeah,
It's a bad thing to be. It's bad to be angry. It's bad to be upset. It's not. It's just human emotion. Nobody died from human emotion, but we're terrified of it. I mean, an eye roll, we would go off our heads. An eye roll, we thought we were going to die. Nobody dies.
speaking as a
I
mum of
can an eye
teenagers.
roll. It's eyes. It's okay. And then we say, "Oh, they'll never get a job." What'll happen when they've got a job and they roll their eye? Nobody lost their job for rolling their eyes that I'm aware of.
No, no, it's true. But they did lose their job, that if they bottled things so much that they made themselves sick
Went,
and couldn't go to work, or expanded that and it just exploded.
yeah.
I suppose, oh, there's so much. And I kind of think we need to do another podcast at
I
some
could talk about
point
this
just
all
to kind
day,
of unpick
honestly.
it all. But one of the questions that I usually like to ask towards the end of a podcast is, knowing what you know now, and you've kind of alluded to this, if you could go back to when you were pregnant or before your first child, what advice would you give yourself?
Yeah. Oh, it's gonna be the breathing, definitely. And I went to the classes and I rolled my eyes at the breathing. I didn't even really pay attention to the breathing stuff because they're teaching us in pregnant birth, aren't they? How important the breathing is. I was like,
Yes.
"Yeah, yeah, whatever, whatever." And then I had a horrible experience during my birth because I hadn't listened, I hadn't paid attention. Yeah, calm down, and that importance of taking time to for yourself and relaxing. I didn't know why they were telling me to do it, and I see now that my unborn child is feeding off my stress,
Mm,
and they're going to be born, and I want, and I don't have the time to, but you know what the resting heartbeat. So we'll rock our child to our own resting heartbeat, and it's unique to us. It's been happening since we were cavemen,
no way.
and so that's why when someone else takes your baby, they can't soothe your baby the way that you soothe your baby.
Yeah.
'Cause you have that calm, resting heartbeat rhythm. But if we were stressed and overwhelmed the whole time, then that rhythm is not the rhythm our child gets to learn. So it won't, it's about, if we can have a calm, resting heartbeat when we're pregnant, as much as possible, then when we keep doing that and we breathe, when we can calm our child a lot quicker, they're familiar with that and it calms them quicker. And
Yeah.
that's co-regulation. So then we can start co-regulate. If I could have co-regulated early in life and having a baby and knowing how to calm myself when I was trying to calm my child. You think of all the days we spent walking the floors with these babies, and I was stressed.
Yeah.
So they were feeding off on my stress. So yeah, breathing, doing it early, doing it in pregnancy,
So
self-care. Hmm.
and becomes natural, and you, as you said, it gets quicker because you
Hmm.
practicing it more.
Yeah.
That, Suzanne, was just gold dust, and I've almost got goose pimples around that. It's that well, it's simple, it's not easy.
Why are we so resistant? I don't know why we're so resistant, but once you start doing it and you see the difference it can make, it really is
Yeah.
transformational.
Oh, incredibly powerful. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
being a guest. It's as I said, I could have geeked out for ages, and I think we probably do need to have you back on as a guest on the podcast. So much.
Sure, we could have very different topics. Thank you.
If this episode gave you something to think about, made you feel a little more human, or helped you feel a little less alone, it would mean so much if you could like, subscribe, or leave a quick review. It's a small thing that makes a big difference. And if you want to talk some more about what came up today or ask a question for a future guest, come hang out in the podcast lounge inside the By Your Side app. It's free to join and it's full of people who get it. Until next time, you've got this and we've got you right here by your side. Just a quick note before we finish. What you hear on this podcast is here to support you, not to replace professional advice. Everyone's situation is different, so if you're worried about your own well-being or your baby's, please speak to a qualified healthcare provider. You deserve support that's tailored to you.